topic, we have a pre-med crash course. So it's just kind of generally introducing everyone to what it means to be a pre-med, how to do it, and just some extra things to kind of keep in mind while you're going through this process. I know some of this might be repeated. I know we pitched the workshop last week. That one's a really popular one that UCI encourages all of its pre-med students to go to. So some of this stuff might be similar or it might be from there, but I would still highly encourage going to that workshop. And if you want to see that, the slides are posted on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
So basically, I'm just going to go over what we're doing for today. So we have a pre-med overview, which is kind of just like, what does it mean to be a pre-med? And just like Karina mentioned, things you might know, which I feel like sometimes I look back and I was like, if I was a first year, I wish someone like went over it in details of some things you might forget or overlook, because there's a lot of things that like really make you stand out as a pre-med and kind of help with med school applications, because they can get kind of daunting. So along with applications, we'll talk about requirements, what a lot of med schools look for, what med schools are required for you to do, and how you approach it, and just how you should pace yourself in timeline so that you're not like a senior or junior being like, oh my god, I missed out on so many things. And then we're just going to have a time for open questions and discussion and ask you if you have any questions about being pre-med, requirements, MCAT, applications. We have people here who have come from like all sort of experience. We have some sort of experience. Mostly me and Akrish have like already taken the MCAT too. So if you have any questions, we got you.
Okay. So as we begin talking about what it means to be a pre-med, the first thing we should establish is what a pre-med actually is. And the actual definition is relatively straightforward, nothing too complicated, right? It's a student who wants to go into a pre-medical or pre-health field, right? And oftentimes something that pre-med students look for is, what do I need to be a pre-med so that schools will consider me? So do we have any ideas? What do we think is something that, medical or PA schools are looking for in a pre-medical student? Ideas? Yeah.
Long-term commitments to like long-term organization.
Okay, long-term commitments. Anything else? Yeah.
Clinical hours.
Say again?
Clinical hours.
Clinical hours. Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
Research.
Research. Okay. Can we lump any of these into general larger categories, do you think? Yeah.
Just like a well-rounded person or student.
Well-rounded applicant. Okay. These are all really good ideas, and they're all absolutely correct. But the way that we like to approach it is by taking it into this two, categorical way of looking at it. So, can you press enter? So it's intention and experience. This is what medical schools and PA schools are all looking for. So any part of your application should be done with some sort of intention to actually help you build a more well-rounded character. And it also should help you build experience with something in the pre-medical field, like clinical hours, right? So can you press next? Yeah. And so as you go through college, especially for first years, which quick, by show of hands, how many first years do we have? Raise your hand higher. Yeah, okay, a number of you, right? So for first years, as you start to navigate college, you want to make sure that you do things that are meaningful, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit later. Don't join 600 clubs and try to become the president of every single one of them. It's not going to look good on your application, right? So you want to make sure that you go through your college with experience and with the intention of becoming a well-rounded applicant.
Okay, so if you guys haven't already met me, I'm the secretary of AMSA. I wasn't able to make it to the earlier meeting, but I'm here now. And just to go over like requirements for a pre-med student, you guys have all heard this like again and again, but we're just going to reiterate it one more time. So obviously your classes that you're taking, making sure you're hitting all the requirements that you need for med school, and then obviously a good GPA, because that's how they measure you. So GPA is a really big one. And then clinical experience, which means like research and like also making sure that you're interacting with patients and interacting with physicians and things like that too. And then obviously the worst thing, the MCAT. So that's a big requirement for a pre-med student as well.
So just to kind of touch on classes and GPA, this is kind of a rough outline for what medical schools are looking for. We're going to talk a little bit later. Of course, it varies from school to school or from program to program. And so you can actually kind of get an overview of that. But we'll go over that database a little bit later. So some of the things that they're looking for are Gen Chem, Orgo, organic chemistry, biology with labs, and of course those two chemistries need labs as well. And then they're usually looking for physics, math, and sometimes biochem courses. In general, when we're talking about GPA, it's kind of, the trend is kind of changing a little bit. So you don't need to have a perfect GPA from the beginning, but something that a lot of schools are looking for increasingly are a positive trend in GPAs. So if you kind of start out rough, but you're improving, it shows medical schools that you're kind of able to adapt and able to adjust, which is what they're looking for. And you can kind of show that through an improved GPA. So just to kind of clarify, a good GPA and an improved GPA are both great. And so definitely two things to consider, especially because classes are usually a requirement when it comes to medical schools, and GPA is kind of a way for you to get your foot into the door for interviews. And this, it's kind of an easy way to roughly sort through applications. So these two things are not as specific, really general. And so I'm sure you've heard of it already, but they're two things that are pretty foundational to while you're applying. And then just we're going to go over one more topic, and that's that there is no major requirement for any school. No school really cares what your major is. It doesn't really matter. The main point from this chart is that, like I just said, it doesn't really matter what your major is. They want you to pick something that you're passionate about, that you'll stay motivated about. And of course, there are those required courses that you have to take. So if you are a humanities major, it's probably not a major requirement for you to take organic chemistry, but you have to take it. So just making sure that you're meeting your major requirements, but also requirements that fit for each medical school. But I mean, beside that, it usually doesn't matter what your major is, as long as you show a passion for it and that you're tying it into your experience and your story as a whole.
Can I make a quick comment about this?
Sure,
one?
of course.
So I want to make a quick note here. This is not like some sort of third-party chart. This is from the AAMC themselves, the American Association of Medical Colleges. And so I want to extend this to all of you. Why do you think we see the trend that we see here? Humanities and math have the highest acceptance into medical school as opposed to bio. Anyone have any ideas or guesses as to why that is? Yeah.
Statistics apply to individuals, not populations. So
All right.
individuals that are like bio majors are like have like, because they don't like necessarily have to take the pre-med course, they go out of the way to take it. So they might be more motivated than the saturation of bio students.
Okay. Any other ideas? You're absolutely, that's a perfect idea. But there's something you could piggyback off of that. Anyone want to piggyback off of that? Another idea that we could explain this trend with?
There's just a lot more of the bio-sci majors than humanities and math going for med.
That's true. So population is one of them, like we said, right? Bio majors, most of you will take the required course that you have to anyway. But the other trend that the AMC have said themselves is background. So if you're a humanities major, you don't need to take any of the courses, right? So you go out of your way to take them. But you also have to take your required humanities courses. So you have more than one background. You have the pre-med background, but you also have the humanities background, right? That makes you a significantly more unique applicant as someone who's just gone by like a regular route. So if you're not like a typical pre-med major, it's nothing to be concerned about. You don't have to change your major to bio. You can do just fine.
Another thing that's really important is clinical experience. So if those of you who do not have a very high GPA are just wondering, can I get into med school? You definitely can. There are a lot of like exceptions, people who had lower than average GPAs who have made it in. And usually it's because of their clinical experience. So a lot of medical schools really require like at least 100 hours, but more usually of clinical experience, which can include volunteering, working in free clinics. Shadowing is also a really important thing so you can know what you're getting into and speak about it. So our website does have a lot of resources and PowerPoints, and I do post on the Discord, and all of us post on the Discord a lot of opportunities that you can take, like volunteering opportunities, other clinical related opportunities. So definitely take advantage of all your resources.
Another thing I wanted to add on to this for clinical experience, one thing I do recommend, I mean, firstly, of course, like as much like hands-on patient interaction, but second, I would write down like as many memorable moments as you have while you're working. So if you're a freshman and you're in like your clinical experience or sophomore, you're like, oh my God, it was really cool that I saw that a patient did this or this happened. Because when you're a senior or after senior, you have to go back and write about these experiences during your application. And most people aren't going to remember like like that niche random detail from 4 years ago, but it's those niche random details from your experiences that really make you stand out in your application, because you're like, look, this is how much actually being in healthcare impacted him or her. So it's kind of like, I would definitely just write down everything that you learned, write down like the really emotional moments, like just how you can use that, because that's going to come like something that's really useful for you later on. And just leewaying off of clinical experience, another huge thing is MCAT. And I know a lot of people find it really terrifying, but honestly, it isn't that bad. The biggest thing might be like the exam being 7.5 hours long. So it's like your entire day, but you do get breaks. But it is kind of can be like a lot for a lot of people, because I don't think any of us have taken like an 8-hour exam before. And there are 4 separate sections. So they have the chemistry and physics, which is one section, and that includes like biochem and like orgo and like all that kind of stuff. There's CARS, which is critical analysis and reasoning skills, which is basically like your English section, but a lot of the passages in your CARS section are like science based. So instead of reading about something in history, you're going to read about like a doctor's report. And then bio/biochem 2. There's more biochem in here, and then psych and socio. And so the scores for this in each section vary, and the overall goes from 472 to 528. With I would definitely go above a 500, because that's most averages for med schools. But I would also look up what the like average range is for your dream school, because if you want to get into somewhere like UCLA, it would be a lot harder to get into with like something in the 400s versus something like in Wisconsin, that like no one really applies to, because obviously location is a huge thing, residency, matching. But again, I wouldn't stress too much, because your score is not the only thing that like is carrying you. Like we've mentioned before, like your GPA score, clinical experience is what really carries you, because they want to show that you're passionate, well-rounded, and like you just care about what you're doing. So even if you're not as good as your MCAT, your GPA is showing that, okay, she's really good at bio and chem and she has a lot of clinical experience, that's still going to work out. And when it comes to just like MCAT examples and studying, when you come to it, I would definitely dedicate at least a few months of like almost full-time studying. And I would take as many practice questions as you can, because if anyone's taken like SAT or ACT or any of those, like practice questions is what really helps more than content review, because you have to get used to the style of exam. And also taking a test for 7 hours. Like I feel like after the 2 hours, like when I first started taking practice exams, I clocked out mentally. So I needed to like build endurance like you do for any other marathon. So yeah, it's just, that's not something you would have to worry about if you're first or second year, but I would just keep that in back of your mind and know that like your biochem and orgo and all those courses, that's basically what's going to be on the MCAT. So I would just focus a lot on those, and that's just free studying for you. And yeah.
I want to briefly touch on something here that Sahir just mentioned. So we've all taken the SAT and the ACT, and those are standardized exams, right? And the common thing that's said about them is that the SAT and the ACT don't test you on any knowledge other than how well you can take the SAT and the ACT. The MCAT is exactly the same. It's a standardized exam. So the MCAT tests you on how good you can take the MCAT. And so, speaking from experience, Sahir and myself have both taken the MCAT. Take as many practice exams as you can, get used to the style of questions, because at the end of the day, that's really what this exam is testing you on.
So now to kind of go over extracurriculars, which includes clubs and research, which you all are part of right now. But medical schools want to see that you've had meaningful involvement, and that's kind of the key word that we're looking for, is meaningful. The note that I wanted to say was usually students who have a story or kind of main values that they're carrying throughout their application, and they have activities, including clubs and research, to kind of back up what they care about, it makes them a stronger application because they have evidence for the things that they're saying. So the point here is that you need to find what's meaningful to you, and you need to find clubs and activities and research that go and tie into what you found is meaningful to you. Just kind of thinking ahead for this is specifically for the AMCAS, so MD application, but they allow for 15 activities. Each of those have a 700 character count, but only 3 of them can have an extra boost with the about 1300 character count. And so the point of this is that quality matters a lot more than quantity. You're only able to take 3 of them and highlight them out of those 15. And 15 sounds like a lot, but they could even be like smaller experiences that you've had. But the point is that those three, you really, really want to focus on those three. I know somebody mentioned it earlier, but like sustained or like long-term commitments that you've made, those are probably going to be one of your top three activities that you're going to write about. So that's something to consider, just because you want to make sure that you have a lot to say for those top three. Just other things to kind of look at. I mentioned earlier about class or course requirement. And then I know we kind of talked about like, you know, average GPAs or average MCATs. All of that kind of data, you can actually find it on MSAR. I know I mentioned it, but that workshop series that I pitched for, or that we pitched last meeting, they actually gave us a free MSAR data set. It was a little outdated, but it was nice that, you know, we got it kind of early, especially if you're a first year or a second year. So they kind of just gave us a little leeway or a little idea into what medical schools are looking for, what their requirements are. And so you can kind of find all of that data with MSAR. And you could go to the AAMC's website so you can find that data set. But another thing that I wanted to highlight, and that medical schools usually look for, are 15 core competencies. It's on this website, which you guys will be able to, or which you'll be able to look at online, but and also once the slides are posted. But these are just rough categories that they have told us they're looking for. It really goes hand in hand with the experiences that we've mentioned, but just kind of keep an eye out for that. Usually, if you're having meaningful experiences, you're going to be meeting some of these automatically. So nothing to be too concerned about, but just something to think about. And then just to kind of highlight a couple of differences, some of the things that we've said are specifically related to the AMCAS, but for DO schools, for podiatric medicine, or for PA, their applications are a little bit different. So just kind of check out what your application is going to be and what's going to be on there if you do want to get kind of like a head start. And then just a quick note for PA schools. I know we mentioned MCAT, but it might look a little different for anyone who's pre-PA.
Also, another random like pro tip for all schools, like you can literally look at the entire application beforehand. The questions that'll be on here, your essay example, all of that. So for MD specifically, I know it opens on June 1st and it's rolling basis. So the earlier you apply, the better chance you have, because they haven't seen anyone else yet. So you can literally go in May before it opens, look at your entire application, have it all written out, and then June 1st, you can like literally put the entire thing in and submit it like the minute it opens, because you have it all pre-made. So I think that's a really good example. So you can already start like basing your activities and what you do based on how you see they've asked the questions or applications and stuff like that.
This is a rough guide, once again, that I actually got first exposed to from that workshop series. It's really rough, and I know it's a little bit older, but it gives a pretty good idea of things you should be thinking about. And then once again, it's going to be posted, but you can take a look at that when you have time.
So yeah, this is just, I know this is a lot of information to give you guys all at once, but I want to just throw it back on you. We did talk about a lot of things, but in any of those, do you guys have any questions about the application, MCAT, types of experience, research, anything, prereqs? Any questions about just the pre-med process?
Lab and C lab, and you guys just also take the 52D lab to have your open lab.
Wait, you said bio or OChem?
So for bio majors, I
Okay.
think we're only required to take 2 open labs.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys are just taking third.
Let's say, I would say, yeah.
Give me 1 second. I can find the sheet that they actually give out, so that we can take a look at it together. It's something that we're going to cover in one of our future topics, but I actually have the sheet somewhere, so I can pull that out and it'll tell you.
But I feel like it's just better in general to just take it, just because it shows up on your application, and like lab experience shows that not only do you know the concepts, but you know how to apply it hands-on, which is why labs is such a huge thing about just being pre-med, is because the whole point of healthcare is just doing hands-on experience of what you're learning. So I would take it, just take it, because I feel like, okay, yeah, I know it sucks because OChem is, that was my least favorite, but yeah.
Plus the 51LD lab that you're talking about, it's a fun lab. You do some pretty fun experiments. You get to use vanilla a lot in OChem. Like vanilla. So anyone who takes OChem here, you're gonna use a lot of vanilla. Okay. Any other questions about anything at all? Feel free to ask us. This is just a free-for-all. Y'all can ask any question you have
Yeah.
about pre-med.
or applying, or like even if you're like, what do I do? Yes. Usually they don't. They usually don't. If they do, you can look on the website and they'll show, but it's pretty like well laid out of like your personal information section and then activity section. And what med school, I mean, I'm sure you might be familiar with this. There are primaries, secondaries, and interviews. So it's a 3-step thing. So you submit your primaries, it's personal information. You're gonna have one hardcore essay, which basically is what I talked about, like your emotional aspect, whatever you want to talk about, one big essay, like for the Common App. And then of that essay, you talk about why you're choosing healthcare, etc. There might be a couple questions that like differ than your activity section, and each like characters talk about what's important for your activities. But then after that, you'll get secondaries, and that is particular to each school. So those may change every year. So if you get accepted by like round 1 for like USC, UCLA, and like UCR, then they'll send out secondaries, and those questions will be different. But you'll have like a whole couple weeks, month to like get back and answer. And those are mostly like why us schools, or like USC sends out a bunch of like character questions, like what's your favorite movie or something, whatever, to see what kind of like personality you have. So yeah, but it's all mostly online. Like there's also like the like Reddit pages and stuff like that, and people are constantly posting. So I would definitely get on like the pre-med Reddit and have like everyone who's ever tried anything telling you like everything about their experiences. Oh, and this is the recommended courses. So for you who asked that, I would take a photo of this. I would also share.
We're gonna post it too. So we're having either our next meeting or the week after will be course recommendations. So we'll of course put this resource up when we can, but we'll also go over it in a meeting as well. So
also, some of these vary from college to college. Like I think it's San Diego or some of them, they've made a lot of these courses as recommended, not required anymore. So you don't have to take the entire sequence, just take like half of OChem lab and then like ACE or MCAT, and then they're not going to care because you've done everything else, you know? So just take everything with a grain of salt. I would start, if you want to be really organized, start making a list of every school you want to apply to, and then like look at each of their requirements, because it differs from school to school, which is kind of confusing, but that's something you would have to look for. And then for, so yeah. Any other questions about anything? Yes.
What factors to consider when looking at like the different methods?
That's a really good question. So I mean, one of my biggest things is like programs and locations. So different schools serve different communities. There are some schools that focus on like underserved communities, some like PhD, MD program schools, like Stanford has a great PhD, MD program schools. If you're like more into research, I would look into like the range, like target versus reach schools, like how you guys did for college applications. That's the same thing for med schools. Like depending on how like hard it is to get into that school, like I would consider that. And also location, like where do you want to spend the next 4 years? Where do you want to be able to do in your clinical experience? Because at the end of your med schools, you're just going to be doing rotations in each specialty. How well is this like school known for their specialty? So those are all things I would consider on like where you want to be able to apply. Also, like there's DO versus MD. So are you only looking at DO schools, or are you looking at MD schools? Are you also applying PA? So that's just like on a person-to-person basis. You have to figure out what like you care about more, and then like research that in the schools you're looking for and in the area you're looking for them.
And to add on to that, so just like Zahir said, different schools do different things. So for example, when you all apply to UCI, right? UCI is known as a research school because it focuses a lot on research. Medical schools and other healthcare schools work the same way. So there's research-based medical schools, and then there's more pedagogy, so education-based medical schools, right? And so if you find yourself that you really, really love research at UCI, and you want to go into medical school and you want to continue doing research, maybe you focus more of your attention on a research-based medical school. And then like the programming thing, right? Let's say that, you know, you're applying and you say that I really want to go into neurosurgery. Like since the day I was born, I was already thinking about neurosurgeons, right? So then you apply to a school that's known for its neurosurgery program. Right? If you want to go into neurosurgery, you're not going to go to a school that's known for like, you know, ophthalmology, right? So you want to kind of keep that in mind. And if you don't know what you want your specialty to be, that's fine. Most schools support most specialties. So, but just generally, yeah, like what you personally want to do. And location, like if you don't want to spend 4 years in the middle of a desert in Wisconsin, which I don't know why we're throwing so much shade at Wisconsin, but you know, keep that in mind too.
But this is just kind of example of MSAR data that I got from that workshop. It was pretty nice because I actually did this workshop last year and they gave me the 2022 data and the AMC charges for it. So it was nice to get it for free. But you can kind of see what schools are requiring from you. So like even there's a section for AP credit. So if you've taken AP classes and you're wondering like, oh, hey, I use that AP credit to my degree, what about for med school? You can see that on here. And like there are some, you know, case by case basis, and like some of them like require math done in college, but you know, maybe for your major you didn't do math. Usually by the time you're picking out these schools and kind of looking at requirements, usually by your senior year you still have a space to take whatever classes your medical school that you want to go to is asking you to take. So nothing to be too concerned about, but definitely look at like the general ones. And like I said, we will be going over that in another presentation, another GM. So just keep an eye out for that. But this is one that workshop was really just helpful for me just to kind of like get an idea. So that's why I pitched it. But you'll get all of these data sets, and I'm not too sure, but I would assume that the 2023 data set would be given out at that workshop too. But yeah, just take a look if you are interested. Don't be too worried about this stuff. Like I said, you can always you know, when you're getting closer to applying, when you get closer to like making your list of schools you want to go to, then you can kind of analyze, hey, have I done this? Hey, have I done that? So
Yeah,
Being like unique in your application. So would you recommend like minoring something non-pre-med, or could you do that through club?
I mean, it's frankly up to you. So if you say, okay, so imagine this, right? Let's say that you're going through a major and you say that I really like paleontology, right? And so you decide to minor in paleontology. Does UCI have a paleontology minor? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Anyway,
So
imagine it does, right? So then if that's meaningful to you and that's something that you enjoy doing, then go ahead and minor it, right? Then when you apply to medical schools, you're going to be asked to talk about it. And when we say being a unique applicant, that's really what we mean, is talk about it, right? Sahir mentioned that you're going to get interviews, which is kind of the final barrier when applying to medical school. And during these interviews, they're not going to ask you how you study for your MCAT, right? They're not going to be like, please solve this organic reaction. No one's going to ask you, right? But they are going to ask you, what did this club mean to you? What does this hobby mean to you, right? They're going to ask you for why you decided to do things that were meaningful to you. And so you can minor in something if you want. You could join a club if that club, you know, if it's meaningful to you. You could also just leave it as a hobby, right? If UCA doesn't have a club, make a club and start it, right? So at the end of the day, it's really about something that's meaningful to you, and how you choose to make that meaningful impact for yourself as an applicant, up to you.
I want to add on to that. This is kind of similar to like you may have heard for applying to colleges. They've mentioned the word like passion project. This is basically like a similar thing. Find something that's like really niche and random. Like you like say you like art, like you love drawing. Okay, how can I make that like about healthcare? That's about anything. So I know someone personally. She's done like an entire like initiative where she kind of like partnered with local hospitals, and she started going and like drawing there and giving it to like the elderly, and made an entire passion project out of her love for art. So it's like she's serving the healthcare community and also showing that like it teaches her like to connect with people, and how art can like showcase emotions and like increase just the personal ability, because you want to be personal in your application. So if like there is a minor which you feel makes you like stand out, like you're minoring in like, I don't know, what's something, communications, I don't know, but like something that like you can then use that to something. So use your communications and be like, okay, I started a little like society where we get a like mentor mentee program and like do something else and whatever. Like you're using that for something. So more so than minoring in club, I would try to make a passion project. So whatever you minor in or whatever club you do something that's unique to you. So it showcases something you're good at that not a lot of bio majors or like every other med person would be good at, and then it makes you look better in their eyes, because you're not applying as like yourself. You're applying, so if you're a bio major, you're applying against every other bio major in SoCal. So look at the people around you and be like, how can I become different from them? It's just all about being unique, honestly, at this point.
I wanted to add something to that really quickly. I agree, like you should find something like niche for sure. I would say one thing is like if we don't all have to like find something, it doesn't, we don't all have to have like something specific or something super different, because I know people that have gone into med school, it's just the way they talked about it and the way they wrote about it. So like
Yeah.
whatever experience they had, whatever they got from that, and if you just see their essay, like it could be the most simplest thing of just like being in a research lab, but that one experience they had, the way they wrote about it, it's like, wow, like I have not read this about any other person that's done a research lab. So it's just person to person, like doesn't always have to be super different, but I think essays matter a lot.
Yeah.
So
Thank you so much, Kristen.
Another random thing to add about that is like talk about something really random. I read this essay and like she spent most of her essay like starting with something that has nothing to do with medical. I think it was some like sports quote or something. And then she like connected that and made the entire essay a huge metaphor and threw in something like really sad about a patient which had to do with that like niche sport example. And I was like, that's a crazy way to write about something like that. Like just be unique in that and they're gonna be like, whoa, and then they're gonna think about you. I can't believe like that was so crazy. Like this is this essay. Any other questions? Oh my god, that's a really good question. I did know it.
3,000 or 2,500.
I think it was 2,500.
I think it might be
We'll look
2,500
it
per person. I don't remember exactly.
Let me look it up.
But yeah.
I know there's a little couple of flashbacks to college essays, but yeah.
The good thing about your personal statement is like, okay, so for college, you had to fill out like a whole bunch of different essays, right? For different schools. For your personal statement, which is your medical school essay, it's just one personal statement that you send to all of your schools, right? So you don't have to write a million different personal statements.
It's 5,300 characters, by the way.
50
Yeah, we mentioned characters. They're huge on characters, just kind of annoying. Like just use words, but they're very like characters. So that includes like every comma, space, letter that you use. And yeah, so 5,300 characters, which I think is a solid page. It's a solid page, single space. That's what it is. When I wrote one, I was like, solid page. Yeah.
Any other questions about anything? Yeah.
So what would you guys recommend doing your freshman year? Or just to like
Enjoy it. Frankly.
Yeah.
So I was gonna touch on this. Freshmen, we know we've talked about a lot. You don't have to do this right now. Please don't go home and start taking MCAT practice tests. You don't have to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're here, right? You attended this club meeting. That's good for now, right? I mean, to me, this is week 3. Freshmen, y'all are 3 weeks old, right?
Yeah.
So take your freshman year to like enjoy it, right? Explore what UCI has to offer and explore what is meaningful to you. And the next year you can start acting on what's meaningful.
Or I would just keep this in the back of your mind. Like, again, don't stress, but then like hypothetically you're walking down and you see a flyer about we're accepting like participants for some like niche neurosurgery thing. And you're like, this is something I really liked. Apply for it. Like, it's not going to hurt, And then like by the time you apply, get in, it's probably going to be like the end of your first year. So you're going to get in as a second year, you're going to be in that position. So I would just like keep it in the back of your mind, but don't stress. So just whatever you think, and then you see an opportunity or you get an idea in your first year, you usually get your best ideas when you're not actively like stressing about it, honestly. So just like keep it in the back of your mind, but like Akash said, like just chill, like vibe, because it only gets worse. No, just kidding. But yeah.
Y'all are freshmen. Have fun. I wish I was a freshman again.
I want to say, like, as a freshman, I'm literally second year, so I know what it feels like to like, oh my god, I'm a freshman. What do I do? Like, where do I even start? Like they said, like I would just like start thinking about it. One thing that I did specifically was just like in my notes app, I just created a notes, like, and I was like, okay, I'm interested in this stuff, and like these are the things that BCI offers. And then I started that actually like applying, looking into it, probably like end of first year, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just this is a time to research on things and like just know what's even available. So yeah.
I'd also say make sure to like not put a lot on yourself. Like don't take a whole load of like, medical related stuff, go to many clubs, because you need to really focus on your GPA freshman year. When you like start college, it's a complete new experience. It's a lot, and you don't want to make your GPA suffer because you want to engage in a lot of extracurricular activities. But like Sahir said, you can try to like keep it in the back of your mind. But also there's a series, I don't remember what it's called, but they have like day in the life or for every specialty in medicine. So there's like, what does a radiologist do? And it tells you about like their a day in their life and just everything they do. So if you want to like know about specialties, you can watch that in your free time and not like get too committed right now, and take a lot of time every day, but just, have that in the back of your mind. But
Yeah. And also, like, that's another thing I feel like a lot of like pre-med students, but just like college students forget about. Take care of yourself first. I feel like it's
Yes.
really easy to get lost in the stress of like pre-med and like health, and then like your entire goal becomes focused on med school instead of yourself. When you kind of like extract yourself from the situation and see it as just something you want, not something you need, then you'll like develop a love for it instead of it'll turn into something you have to do, and then you're stressed about it, and then you're sad, and then like it just has so many like negative health effects on you. Like focus on taking care of yourself, and then everything else will just naturally come after. I feel like.
Very good wisdom from Sahir.
As a senior, I guys, I got you. Like you get crazy at the end of this, but yeah. Any other questions?
I think I saw a question back there. Yeah, what's up?
So, hold up. What is the earliest you'll start hearing back from medical school after the secondary?
After the secondaries?
So primary to secondary takes like a month because AMC and the AMCAS, like the entire, because AMCE is AMCAS. So they take a couple weeks to process your application and go through and just see like, does everything look legit? Does she look like she's lying about like 10,000 hours of hospital, And so then after that, they send it to your schools and then they give you secondaries. And then after that, it's about a couple months each, depending on how early you apply. So if you apply later in July or August, it's going to take longer because there are more people who've already applied. But if you do it in June, by like the end of June, early July, you should start getting applications in July and then hearing from interviews around August, October. That's what I've seen. And also, this is when the Reddit pre-med is like huge because there is an entire subsection of just people applying, and they will update you on every school like this. So like, oh, I heard a secondary from this, I heard an interview from this, and you'll know, okay, they started checking out this, and they started sending out interviews. And so yeah, but it usually just takes like a month to 2 months in between each section. But yeah, it's a great question. Any other questions?
I want to quickly add something to that. So, yeah, that's generally how the primaries and secondaries will work, and then interviews will usually go throughout the school year. Like,
Yeah,
as that
all the
starts.
way till the end. Like people have gotten accepted like right before the year starts, like gotten off the wait list or whatever. Like this goes the entire year.
Like the 4th week of July, you get accepted to medical school, and the 1st week of August school starts. right?
Exactly. Like that's how last minute it is. So I would never like lose hope or be like, I didn't get it anywhere. Like decisions change like this.
So the
Yeah.
process itself, though, the actual application generally lasts about a year. So it's about a year-long application.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Actually, I have a story to kind of like piggyback off of that. I was talking to my advisor. By the way, if you haven't talked to an advisor, definitely at least have a conversation with one, just because they can provide you with a little bit of guidance and you can kind of like touch bases with them. If I'm not wrong, all of the biosci counselors are also pre-med counselors or pre-health counselors, so you can kind of talk to them as well. But one story that my advisor told me was there was one applicant who was really, really upset, like didn't get anywhere. Like I was on a couple of wait lists actually. And so he decided to like turn off his phone and go on like a vacation and relax. And then when he came back, he realized that a medical school had accepted him and got him off the wait list, but that deadline to actually sign up had passed. So just, yeah, I know. So kind of a crazy story, but things like that happen. So just don't lose hope, that's just one quick tidbit and kind of just like an experience. I'm sure we'll also hear more from when we have a med school student panel, but there's a lot of stories like that, and there's a lot of things that go into the consideration, and how many students schools are taking and all of that kind of stuff. But we don't have to worry about that right now. So
You got a question?
Yeah, what are you guys' favorite MCAT resources?
Ooh, that's a
Kaplan?
good one. Kaplan is a good
I'm a
one.
huge Kaplan girly.
Yeah,
Blueprint? Did you use Blueprint?
I did use Blueprint for a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm gonna tell you guys something that is like a secret that a lot of people don't know about. Kaplan and Blueprint, both of them, like if you sign up for their email list, they'll send you a free MCAT question every day to your email. So first years, again, don't do this. All right. Second years, however, and third years, if you're thinking about taking the MCAT soon, try it out. You can get like a little bit of a head start on your studying. But Kaplan is a good one.
Mhm.
Blueprint is a good one. I use Princeton, the Princeton Review.
Mhm.
They're also a good one.
There's a lot of people, again, I know I'm like, I might be sponsored by Reddit at this point, but people who already made study guides, flashcards. Anki is the biggest program, which is like the Quizlet for people, and they have like decks and flashcards made of everything you might need to memorize. And then within Princeton AMC, like the website itself, they have like free sign up and you get free tests, full length tests and all that. Princeton gives you some, Kaplan gives you some, all of those books. And then all of those combined, I feel good enough to self-study. Like after that, if you like keep taking and you feel like you need like someone to keep track, then I would study with a study group, find friends. You can like, other people in your major, etc. Worst case scenario, if you just really want to like go whatever, like find like some teacher or whatever, or you can join classes too. Like I know they have a lot of classes that will help you out, but I generally think like if you just use a little bit of everything, then you'll be fine. It's all about practice, honestly. The content itself isn't too hard, especially if you've already taken the classes. Like even if you like barely pass, that's all you need to know, because they just make the easiest thing. Like they'll ask you that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell in like a 5-page essay using like crazy words, but the answer is just the mitochondria. Like that's how easy the stuff is, but they make it really complicated. So it isn't that bad of a test. It's just annoying for no reason.
That's why we say that the MCAT and the SAT and the ACT, they're all the same. They just test you on how good you are at the MCAT.
Exactly.
You could have failed OChem and you could do perfectly
on the MCAT. Pretty much, yeah.
So yeah.
And then just a quick pitch, if you do end up deciding to be a national member, we do give out Kaplan discounts and we are trying to partner with Princeton, but we'll update you when that comes, but Kaplan will always be here. So just as a quick reminder, pitch, if you're still deciding. Of course, like we mentioned, it's not a requirement to be a national member or anything. But just to let you know, because I know it was mentioned. So
any other questions about anything?
I want to say I am living proof about the Kaplan thing, because my first year at AMSA, I got a free Kaplan course. And so if I met you at the involvement fair, I told you about it, right? So yeah, you can get like stuff from AMSA, like either at a discount or straight up for free.
Yeah.
So
or like I got an entire set of stuff that's worth like a couple $100 for 20. I was just like scouring the internet, and then I found this girl online. I was like, "Hey, can you give me your books?" And she's like, "Sure." She gave me 20, and I was like, "Okay." And then I got like the entire set with full review and access to the entire online thing, which as a set is worth like 200, 300, and it was just like $20, which is pretty good if you think about it. That's just like what, 4 coffees? Like, yeah. But yeah, any other questions?
how's everybody's week going? I understand there is a 93 and a 97 midterm tomorrow. Yeah?
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. You guys will all do very well.
Well, that's about it. If you guys don't have any questions, we also keep an eye out. We have a study session in 2 weeks from now.
1 week is
Next week.
Next week. I
Yes.
lied.
Study session next week, 6 to 8 ALP 2610.
Mhm.
So please come by and study with us. We would love to study with you. We're all studiers,
Yeah.
so become studiers with us.
Yeah.
And some of us have also taken a lot of the classes that you guys are taking. So if y'all need help,
Oh, yeah. And then we have a lot of stuff coming up. So make sure if you're not on the Discord already,
Please
our
join.
beautiful Angel posts so many resources and community service opportunities and this opportunities. And we're like, girl, go you. So we have a lot of stuff coming up. So email, Discord, Instagram, great ways to find information. Make sure you're all just plugged in. And thank you so much for coming.